I don't know if that's better or worse. Whatever. Hi, Judy.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm okay. I want to ask Ashley, when you send out the invitations, we always have to put in the password separately, and there is some way to structure invitations so the password is included.
I think
Because
that's if you use the same link for every meeting, and we're not supposed to. We have to use a new link for each meeting.
I'm not sure. The problem
I have
is
to look into it more.
you can't cut and paste it.
No, you can't.
So
You have to
do
write it down.
around with Windows or writing it down, which is just primitive in the extreme.
Right. I can look and see if there's a setting on the back end.
Yeah, I think it would be probably.
Okay.
I write it down, Judy. When I get the email, I write it down on the piece of paper.
Yeah.
The Zoom meeting. Oh, I did.
Peter?
All right, click on that.
Oh, well.
Say hi to Judy.
Hi, Judy.
I just wanted to tell you, apparently my brand new Spiffy computer does not run ArcGIS fast. I'm going to see whether there's something I can do about that, because it's much worse than the old one, and it should not be that way.
That's strange.
Yep.
Well, okay.
Maybe one of the guys down at county planning office who works with a lot will know, or, I'll ask the forum.
All right. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Peter. How are you?
Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Peter.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi,
John.
John.
Hi, John.
Hello.
Say hi
Let's
to Matt.
see.
Hey, Matt. There's Matt.
Hi.
How you
Hi. How
doing?
are you?
I gotta get the agenda up here, though. That's the problem.
Can you?
Public. How did that happen?
Where's the agenda?
All right, get this over here.
There we go.
Hi, Laurel.
Hey there, ladies and gentlemen.
How are you?
Terrific.
Don, I saw a fascinating presentation about bees on the Woodstock Land Conservancy. Not just honeybees, all kinds of bees.
That's cool. Was it a webinar?
Yeah, it's actually you can access the recording easily.
Okay.
Just go to Woodstock Land Conservancy or the Pollinator Pathway. I'm not sure. I'm one of those two.
Okay.
Maybe both. There are links to the video. They've been doing good webinars. Very interesting stuff.
That's awesome.
I wonder if some of John's bees were in my hydrangea. About a month ago, I was up on my deck and the hydrangea was just full of bees. And, I don't know anybody close to me who's got a hive, but I understand they range pretty far.
Well, mine are living at Connors nowadays. I
Well,
gave him
that's within 5 miles.
what?
That's within 5 miles.
Oh, sure. So 1, 2, 3. We don't have a quorum yet, do we, Peter?
Not yet.
Oh,
Stuart's coming in.
that's good. That makes it, doesn't it?
There's
We're having a
Stuart.
quorum count, Stuart.
Say again?
We're having a
Good,
quorum
hi.
count. You made it.
What?
You made the quorum.
Count.
Oh, okay.
Welcome, Stuart.
Thank you, Melissa.
We needed one more for a minion. We've got one. You're in.
Yeah, modified menu, but we have 3 minutes left, so maybe you get more.
Yeah, that's very. Melissa, when did that letter come in from Ellen? Today?
Yeah, really late, almost 4 o'clock. The second one. The first one came in the beginning of the week. Well, a
I
couple
don't
days
think I
ago.
read
Second one, you mean the non-letter, the one where she does a statement of facts and doesn't ask us to do anything?
There was an original memo and then she amended the memo.
Well, maybe I only have part of it. Okay.
And the thing about how it's all very complicated. That was the one that came today, right?
Sounds right.
Then there's one from Bill, who doesn't want anybody to be unhappy.
Well,
All right, boys, let's go.
Actually, he does have a position. I'm wrong.
Let's do
The
it.
second one said amended memo.
it's Brian.
Mr. Clark is our representative for Verizon.
Good evening. How's everyone doing?
How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well. How
James,
is
I see
everybody?
James. Hi, James.
No.
Judy, how's the kitty?
She throws up less now that I'm combing her. You ever seen one of these?
Oh, I do, yes. They love
Terminator.
that.
Yeah, she likes it. She purrs.
Okay, everybody. It is 7 o'clock. And I'd like to call to order the Woodstock regular Zoom meeting of the Woodstock Planning Board for September 17th, 2020. We do have a quorum. Melissa, are there any new items to add to the agenda or announcements?
Only the two that I sent you guys at 4. It was just 2 more communication
Right.
items. That's it.
Okay, we have the minutes from August 20th to September 3rd. If nobody has any objections or anything to add to the minutes, I'd like to accept them to the record.
Moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we have a lot of updates and communications and announcements. Most of them obviously are for Place 99, which we will be doing later on in the meeting. So the only other ones are, there are some wetland maps that came in from Maria and Rodrigo Carlos, which I think maybe you've seen. I've asked them to make sure that they provide us with a proper map with the existing lot and the proposed subdivision with the wetlands and buffers and streams all on it. So
I spoke to Rod and asked exactly what you just said.
okay, great.
So we're waiting.
Okay. So the rest of all the communications are regarding Place 99. So I think I'll save them till we actually get to that issue. So the first order of business is the Town of Woodstock and Verizon Wireless. And that is Special Use Permit 20-03228, which is a follow-up sketch plan review and MDR memo dated August 30th, 2020. So I'm going to turn this over to Matt because he's the one that's done the review and made his memo, and I think he's best to guide us through it. So Matt, if you could take it from there.
Sure.
Peter,
Good evening, everyone.
there's
Yes,
no
sir.
need for a map for that, is there?
Pardon?
I don't think there's a need for a map, but if you decide there is, Matt, you can tell me.
On the Verizon application?
Mhm.
Well, I mean, our memo sort of says that, you know, there's just a few issues that the board has to decide on, but it's largely ready to be acted upon. But we did have some comments, but it's up to you for what you need.
No, man, I want you to go ahead with it because I think,
Okay,
that,
good.
you know, you've got it
Okay.
organized. And,
Yep. So we just went down our prior unanswered comments and just raised the issues that the board has to decide on and has the authority to decide on. But the first comment just has to do with the fact that the panel antenna exceed the size set forth in the zoning ordinance. And the applicant indicates that the board in the past has waived that size requirement and has never applied the same as a restriction. They also say that it's federally preempted, but the board should it's in the board's own discretion at this point. We don't see any hugely important issue here, but just technically the panels do exceed the size set forth in the ordinance. And so we're just stating that as a matter of fact, and it's really up to the board to, as the applicant said, really decide for what is precedential with regard to the way the board has handled this in the past. Number two, this is the continuing comment that we've made that we feel that a number of different places the board is really, or the town is really entitled or needs to know the name of the various carriers. Which normally would be normally something that is listed on an application like this. And also our feeling is that it really would have been needed to complete the RF, the radio frequency analysis. But the board should determine if they want that information in the application and direct the applicant accordingly for their response. And that has to do specifically with identifying the other carriers that are that will be on the tower. The issue about the configuration really is the same answer. It has to do with the number of carriers. So it's the same as the comment number 2 above. They have the capacity. No modification is required at this time. The analysis should be revised to just identify those other carriers, in our opinion. Previous comment has to do with the bonding requirement. And we know that's I don't know if it's an oddball is the right word, but it's not a typical situation because of the town's position with regard to the land. Our reading of the ordinance says that it's not the owner that is obligated, but it's really the applicant that's obligated. And that in any case, both the applicant and the owner are obligated. So clearly the applicant is part of that. And the applicant, the board should decide whether it's going to enforce that bonding requirement. I know that the town has a position on that, but it's up. That's not a zoning or a safety issue. Well, it's a zoning compliance issue, but it's not a live or die kind of an issue. It's just enforcing the ordinance. And I know that there's some arrangement the town has with regard to the carrier that made that not necessary in the past. And maybe that's really still the case. And I think that we just a comment that when there's an action taken on this, and if there's an approval, that we would recommend there be a condition requiring that the annual certificate to the planning board be complied with as required in the 264. So that's really all. It's pretty straightforward. It's up to the board to sort of decide on how they're going to proceed and act on this.
Okay, my understanding from Bill is that instead of requiring them to pay the bond, that they're paying rent now, and I think his feeling is as long as they keep paying the rent, that's okay. So, other than that, Matt, what do you suggest the board do at this point?
Well, I think the board has to decide whether it wants to require them to comply with the size, the panel, the directional panel or the antenna requirements in the ordinance. And that's, as I said, something that the town has waived in the past and has not required them to have panel sizes that are within the restrictions of the ordinance. So the board has to decide if that's okay or not. And then the second thing is that the board has to decide whether it wants the other carriers identified, or at least ask the applicant why they can't provide the names of the other carriers. I just think it's always better for a board that's granting authority for a use to know who the users are going to be, in terms of them being complying with the requirements. Same issue on contract 3, on item 3, which is the naming of the carriers. And then the whole issue is just the bond of removal. And so you have to decide whether you want a bond or you accept the town's, accept the town's, the way the town handles this requirement that that in case there's a default, that the removal of the improvements are financed separately, and that they don't fall on the town. So that's just I'm just repeating these things.
Okay.
So it's deciding on each of these questions.
Okay.
And also including a condition that the annual certificate is submitted as per the zoning ordinance 260-64L. So I don't really have much more to say. I would think that it's up to the board really to decide on these issues and then proceed.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Thank you. Okay, board, so you've heard the 3 issues. Let's just go through them. How does the board feel about having all the carriers listed in the memo, or not in the memo, but in the
application?
Yeah.
The application? I
Yes.
think there's no reason why they would not do that, and so I think they should.
Is there anyone online from the applicant?
Mr. Clark.
So my name is Hyde Clark. I'm an attorney with Young Summer. I work with Scott Olson, representing Verizon Wireless tonight. Thank you for having us. I guess the first question is in terms of the names of the other carriers on the tower. You know, our position is that this is it's on town property. I know it's managed by Crown Castle. If there is information that the town requires as to other carriers, certainly as the property owner, I'm not sure why that information is not with the town at this point. This is an existing facility for Verizon. We have existing antennas. I know some of the application requirements may be if we were first coming on to the facility. It's important if we were not already on the tower to know who else is on at what heights. But for this application and under the Taxpayer Relief Act, TRA, we're just replacing existing antennas and we're already on the tower. So I'm not sure if that information is required at this time from the applicant.
Okay,
I have
thank
a
you.
question, Peter.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Yeah. These other are there other carriers using the tower now, and how do they get that status? Do they have to go through Verizon, or do they independently get placed on there by some arrangement with Crown?
So it's not a Verizon tower, so we would have nothing to do with other carriers. I would think they would have to go through the same approval process with the town, and they would have to say we're going to co-locate on the Crown Tower, apply for site plan review, get that approval from the town. So Verizon's really just a leasee on this tower. We have nothing else.
Does Verizon have the right to, sub out any of its use of your equipment to other carriers?
No, that's not something we would do. Yeah.
No. Okay.
No.
Well, hi, John Laval here. I understand Verizon does, in fact, sub to Spectrum. And
Verizon.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just wondering so Spectrum to me is cable, so it'd be more telephone. So I don't know if you're speaking of Verizon telephone as opposed to Verizon Wireless, but
I use Spectrum mobile phone.
okay.
And
I just signed up.
When I asked the Spectrum people, they said, "Oh, we're Verizon. We go over the Verizon lines." And indeed, there's no difference between the Spectrum coverage in this area and the Verizon coverage. So indeed, Spectrum does have some sort of business arrangement with Verizon. So I think it would be maybe in the interest of all, as far as the clarity, for Verizon to simply tell us who else is there.
So with that that arrangement, I can't speak to that arrangement, but I don't think, to me, that sounds more like there's a business relationship between Time Warner and Verizon as to the Verizon equipment, not necessarily that there's Time Warner or Spectrum equipment there. Sounds like more like they're offering it through the Verizon equipment. So I can get more information on that. I'm just not sure of that arrangement. I don't think it's that there's Spectrum equipment at the Verizon level, though.
Okay.
It sounds more like Spectrum may be using Verizon's equipment, but I don't know.
They're using their surplus coverage.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to get more information on that. I just don't have the answer on that. But there's not Spectrum equipment at the height of the Verizon equipment. Those are Verizon wireless antennas that are located there on the tower.
Okay.
It's not additional equipment.
How about the, can I ask another question, Peter?
Sure.
Not for nothing, but how about the government? Are they able to use your equipment up there? Federal government?
So, I mean, normally you would have the government co-locate their own equipment on a tower. That's, again, it's a private carrier. I don't know to the extent that they share that. That's a new concept, so I don't have an answer for that right now.
Okay.
Peter, excuse me, Stuart, to answer your question, I know there are many government frequencies on both the Moncure and the old TZA tower, multiple.
Right.
So they've been there for years. So I doubt seriously if they would want the Verizon location, simply because it is, very frankly, inferior to the other two.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's a good point. Does you have something else, Stuart?
No.
Does anybody on the board have an issue with the size of these antennas as opposed to what Matt said the code referred to?
Well, I'd love to know what the size requirements are, size maximums, and what size they are.
So we're proposing, I think, 8-foot antennas. That's standard in the industry. And that's what's currently on the tower at this point. So again, this is a application to upgrade and replace, and there's existing 8-foot antennas on the tower. I'm not sure about other carriers on the tower. Can only speak to Verizon, but that is industry standard to have 8-foot antennas.
Are these 8-foot panels, 8-foot monopoles? What are they?
Panel
And
antennas.
How big are the panels? How big are the panels? Besides 8 foot, that's one dimension.
I don't have the dimension in front of me at the moment, but if you're familiar with the tower, it would be consistent with that. I mean, the 8 foot by 1 foot, 2 foot. I mean, it's thin because you have multiple panel antennas pointing in. Right now there's 12, right? So there's 4 on each side pointing 3 directions. We're taking it down to 7, and they'll still be the same size. So if the town's concerned with a visual impact, really we're lessening that, and we'll have, in fact, less antennas that are currently there. Difference between 5 feet and 8 feet, that's nominal at the distance, the height that these are located.
Do they reflect? Are they reflective materials? Any
No, they're
potential of creating glare from?
No, they're matte finish.
So I'm assuming that the real difference here is the electronics are upgraded.
It's just a new technology. You're right. Yep. No difference from size or shape, though.
Well, we're going to get a question. Is this 5G? Is it 6G? What is it?
4G.
Really?
This is not 5G. No. 5G is only being rolled out in certain cities at this point across the country. This is a 4G application.
And just to be clear about that, that you're saying that the antenna is going to carry 4G, but is it capable of carrying 5G? Or will we need an upgrade when that happens? If that happens.
So, yeah. So, my understanding of 5G, and, we don't have any 5G applications around this area at this point. So it's really just my general understanding. 5G is really has to be in close proximity. And so you're talking about more like a city where you have utility poles that have antennas located on the utility pole and in close proximity. It's really not a macro site like this where you have a tower 114 feet up with panel antennas.
All right, gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, does anybody else on the board have any questions?
Nope.
For Clark? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to pass this permit.
So moved.
Okay, like to have a vote on the board.
Need a
I
second.
need a second.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
The motion has passed. Thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you. Everyone have
Yeah,
a
thank
nice
you,
night.
Clark, for your information. That was very
Good luck.
helpful.
All right. Take care. Have a good night, guys.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda is, let me get it up here.
Isaacs.
This is
Mr.
a
Isaac.
Richard Isaacs, a special use permit 20-0316A, which is a sketch plan review for site plan modification, a site plan review application to expand existing mixed-use site to add one additional apartment in the HC zoning district located at 12 Old Forge Road in Woodstock. And the rep is the applicant. Is the applicant present? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, could you please tell the board what you have in mind to do?
Sure. I have on 12 Old Forge Road, the main house that I used to live in. And behind that is a small structure. It is the studio that I used to work out of. And that studio is about 500 square feet divided on 2 floors. And so I've been running in the past an Airbnb activity till that stopped last year, or maybe this last summer. And so the only thing that I've done to change the use of the space itself to make it an apartment is to add a stove, 24-inch stove, and a 10 cubic foot refrigerator. Otherwise, everything else is the same.
It's got plumbing then?
It has pre-existing plumbing, all pre-approved by the town. When it was first completed, I'm not sure when that was done, maybe 5-6 years ago, maybe longer. But it was fully renovated.
2004.
Well, basically, you're just adding kitchen equipment.
Yes,
Sounds like.
2004 was the initial purchase.
Okay.
But I think
That was the first case.
yes. But the back house was completed, could be maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And yes, the only thing that's been added is just kitchen equipment, just the fridge and stove.
Okay, but is this not a change of use?
It is a change of use, but what I've done to the space is just that. So
Anybody on the board have any questions on this?
Are we adding a unit?
there's no physical addition. I guess it's just about the change of the status. It was presently a studio, but I'd like the board's approval to make it an apartment so I can rent it as an apartment. I think there's a shortage of apartments in town, maybe in Woodstock in general. And people who've walked past the house, to my wife's credit, has made the garden really fantastic. So we stay on top of that. And we've made I renovated the property to look somewhat historic in, somewhat of its original kind of look, as much as one can tell what was original. And so we maintain the property well. And I would continue to do that. And you can see that if you walk down the road on Old Forge, that the property is maintained. I could go into some of detail, if you'd like, of some of the things that I've done to the grounds over time. But the house itself, the
I think
studio.
the main question is, have you gone to the ZEO with this request? Has this gone through the ZEO?
The ZEO, I'm sorry, what does that mean?
The planning board, I mean, the building department.
Oh, yes.
Enforcement officer.
They refer, the zoning enforcement officers referred this case because basically the site plan's being changed because he's adding an apartment where the studio technically was, right, Richard?
That's true.
So it's a change of use.
It's a change of use, with the modification being the addition of a stove and a fridge. Otherwise, through a previous building permit, I'm not sure when that was, the whole structure was redone. And maybe the last thing that was done 4 or 5 years ago was the conversion of what was a wood-burning stove. I wanted to change it to a LP gas appliance. I put in a Yodel stove while I was still using it myself, and I went through the planning board process to get that approved and installed. I think that was the last thing that was done, but there is a pre-existing bathroom there and a sink. That was there when I bought it, and I just put a better sink in years ago. But in the change use, I would say it would require the use of the addition of a stove and a fridge. And again, that stove is a 24-inch wide LP gas fired stove and a 10 cubic foot fridge, sufficient for 1 or 2 people at the most.
So I have some questions, Peter.
Yes, please.
So are there any other apartments that are presently rented on your property?
Yes, one.
And is this studio a separate building from
Yes,
the main house? And is the apartment that's the one apartment you referred to as being rented, what structure is that in?
In the main house.
In the main house.
Yeah,
Is that where you also live in that? You also live in that building?
Yes, I lived in it for about 10 years.
I see. So you're looking to add a second apartment to be contained in within the separate studio.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, you are right next to Garden Cafe then?
Yes,
The other side of their yard.
we enjoy being neighbors of the Garden Cafe.
Okay.
Love the restaurant. If Leah was around, oh wait, she is here. We love the restaurant, and yes. What can I say? Yeah, we're neighbors, and in fact, when I direct people to our place, and sometimes they don't even know where the Old Forge is. In fact, just as a side note, when I first got there, even long timers, I refer to them as long timers in Woodstock versus old timers. And that is that some people didn't know where Old Forge was, and I'd say, it's right by the pizza on the green, and then they would locate it. But now I say, for the last many years, we're next door to the Garden Cafe. And they say, I know where you're at. I've been there. And I say, if you sit in the garden, look to your left, and there we are.
Okay. So
Peter, are there additional parking requirements?
Did you?
I'm sorry. Were you asking me, or I'm sorry?
Yeah, Peter, do we have parking issues here?
On the site plan itself?
Usage.
usage is the question. The issue here is the change of use.
Yes,
And that's the issue because it really has to be okayed by the CEO to change the use.
The question is the addition of one more apartment create a requirement for greater parking to be supplied at the
Right.
property, right?
correct.
So does the board want to see the actual site plan presented to us?
Yeah,
Okay, I don't
I
know.
mean,
if
I've got it on the map, but it's not a real informative thing because the property lines are, as always, inaccurate, and it's a fairly small piece of property.
It is. It's a 0.17 acre. But if, may I reply to that concern about parking?
Sure.
Please.
When I initially came to the planning board at the around 04 to initially do the work and propose what I was going to do, I had to show what I would do with parking. And since everyone agreed, I showed some ideas of how I would put asphalt over the front yard. And it was agreed by everyone that that wouldn't look attractive. And I really didn't want to do that. But in order to comply with the parking regulations at the time, I had to pay into the parking load and buy 4 spaces in the public parking load. So I had to, I think that was maybe $7.50 per space. So I had to do that. I don't know if that still shows up in the record.
I see Judy has a picture up of an ortho of it, but that doesn't really help us with parking.
No, except just to give a sense of the lay of the land here.
But the main issue before us is the change of use, to go from a studio to an apartment.
No, if we could look at that, is it possible to look at that map because it's actually bridging into the property next door?
Well, as I say, we know that the property line drawings that I'm getting from the county are wildly off. So
Okay.
you can tell us how it ought to be adjusted if you want to. I can't do anything about it, unfortunately.
Okay.
But it looks to me like you probably start here.
Yes.
But you know.
And that patch, like that, I guess if that whole, that sort of a trapezoidal figure was moved towards Old Forge, it should move such that it would not include that car in the back.
Okay.
Yeah. But
That makes sense.
I
Do
would
you
say,
cross the stream?
I'm sorry?
Richard, do you cross the stream?
No, I don't.
Think
The
so.
property used to include the piece across the stream, but that was sold off in the 50s. So that is a separate property.
That was a wetland buffer. Now that's the stream. One of those 2 blue lines. They're both
So
representations.
The house next to you was owned by Goodman?
Yes, Ira, on the
Ira
left. Ira Goodman.
And he owns that little piece across the stream, which is where he
Yes.
can put a couple of cars. And I see now you had to buy 4 slots in the parking fund.
Right. And, while I lived there, I always parked in the municipal lot. And even when we had the Airbnb activity, the majority of our visitors came up on the bus. And so because of the wonderful location, it made it possible for people just to bus it up. But the people who, there's a couple that rent in the main house, and only one of the 2 has a car, and the other person commutes into all parts, including Manhattan, using the bus.
Okay, Melissa, do we have anything from the building department, from the CEO regarding this change of use?
Yep. Hang on.
Because that seems to me the issue. I mean, parking, we'll have to look at a site plan to determine the parking, but the question is.
Okay, so Ellen's words are, legalize the prior conversion of artist studio into apartment, expand existing mixed use of 2 offices and 1 apartment into 2 offices and 2 apartments. Reason for referral, modification of site plan review 04316.
Peter and Richard or anybody on the board, I have a question. This is Brian. Is there anything that needs to be considered regarding fire entrance or exit changes when it goes from an Airbnb to a full use apartment? Does anybody know?
I have a sense of
Well, that's again the building department. That's,
I have a sense of that. May I offer that opinion?
Please.
Okay.
Thank
I believe that that had to be covered essentially when I got the C of O to use it as a studio, that it had to cover what concerns maybe the fire department may have had to make it habitable for that use. And since we were one of the, with regard to Airbnb now, we were one of the earliest Airbnb people to use the platform, and there wasn't any restrictions vis-a-vis using that, I don't think. But I made sure that to make us comfortable and the people who would visit us comfortable, because I want them to feel safe, that they had a smoke detector, a CO2 detector, and all the spaces for as many years as I can recall going backward. I've had to have an annual fire inspection, and I had to also include a fire extinguisher in all the spaces. And so I've just bought a new round fire extinguisher and also new smoke detectors in some of the spaces. And so I've done those things. But back to the fire exiting issue, I think that there was some talk about how it was somehow okay that the height of the second floor did not require anything special with regard to some kind of fire escape, things like that, because it had a sufficient height for someone to exit should they have to go out that way.
Thank you.
okay. Stuart, do you see any reason, because, well, let me ask you, Melissa, what was the date of the approved site plan? The last approved site plan for this? Is it over 90 days is my point.
The prior site plan,
Yeah, when was the last site plan approved?
2004.
So it's over 90 days.
Yes.
So the question now for the board, this is a warm up. Does the board feel that this change, that this site plan modification, change of the site plan, is significant enough to have to redo the site plan? Because it's over 90 days, it can't just be voted on by the board unless the board feels that this is such a minor change. If it was before 90 days. After 90 days, if it's after 90 days from the original site, from the last site plan approval, then it has to go before the board and for a public hearing.
Sounds
Is that
pretty
not
clear.
correct?
Yeah, Peter, I think that's a matter of the code, the way I read it. I don't think we have discretion after 90 days to waive the public hearing. Since the public had a hearing on the initial site plan review, and now they're looking to modify it, I think that you have to do a public hearing if you're outside the 90-day window. If it was less than 90 days ago, then we would have some discretion in the matter, but that's my read of.
Okay, let me read you, because this is going to be our next case also. Let me read you 26085, which is proposed amendments to approved site plan. And the last sentence says, this determination shall be based upon the scope of the proposed amendments. Amendments proposed after the 90-day calendar period shall comply with the requirements of this article. So, it says, after the 90-day period shall comply with the requirements of this article. And that's the article.
Spectacularly bad wording.
Excuse me, Judy?
Spectacularly bad wording.
Exactly. So that's my point. It doesn't say it has to require a public hearing. It says it has to comply with the requirements of this article.
Well, if you look at the preceding sentence, to the one that you just read, it talks about the planning board. If they apply within 90 days, and the planning board then determines whether the proposed amendments may be reviewed without full compliance with the procedural requirements of this article, or whether compliance is necessary. So they're talking about the procedural requirements, which plainly would include the procedure of having a public hearing so that the public can be heard on it. And then the next sentence, I think, has to be read in that same sense, where it says, this determination shall be based on the scope of the proposed amendments. Amendments proposed after the 90-day calendar period shall comply with the requirements of this article. So that plainly has to include the procedural requirements. I don't know. To me, it's clear enough, but I'm not the attorney for the board, so I don't want to.
So your reading is that we have to have a hearing?
I think so.
Yeah.
My
I'm
reading
afraid
is
I
that
think
the
so.
board votes on that if they feel that the changes are significant enough to hold a public. Because it doesn't say, it just says that within the 90-day period, the planning board shall determine if the proposed amendments may be reviewed without full compliance. That's within the 90 days. After the 90 days, the board has to determine that. I believe that's the way I'm reading it, but I appreciate Stuart seeing it that way. What it's saying is after 90 days, if you want to change an approved site plan, that it has to go back to full review.
Yeah, I think so.
That's the way, and in that full review, then that would require a public hearing.
That's all.
How long does that process take?
Well, wait, this is going on with our next case in a sense. What it requires is a complete site plan presented to the planning board showing parking, lighting, all the normal issues that we have on a site plan. And once we have a site plan, then we would review it. And if it was all in order, then we would schedule a public hearing.
Would at this point, would that public hearing also take the form of a Zoom call as well?
We
That's up
don't
to the
know.
governor. That's
Yep.
up to the governor.
Okay. Would I have a chance to make a final appeal before you make your vote? Or
Well, we're not going to vote at this point. This is just a question of requiring a site plan review.
no?
And so to do that, we need a complete site plan.
Oh, okay. All right. I mean, so there's no opportunity to dissuade you of that because it's been determined that that's necessary. There's no voting about whether to do that or not. That's really the next step.
That seems to be clearly the issue. I agree with Judy or anybody else on the board that says it's not written so well, but I believe that Stuart's reading of it is correct. John, do you have any input on that?
This is very minor, what we're talking about here. And it seems to me like a lot of process in order to go through another site plan review. I just really feel that this is a minor consequence and that it should not go forward with a full site plan review.
If I may jump in.
It's absolutely ambiguous. You don't think so, Stuart?
Not to me, but I will. Let me point out there's a sentence in 260-74A which is the opener of the site plan review article, which says the site plan may be a sketch plan, but shall contain all the items listed below necessary to reasonably depict what is being proposed. So I wonder if under that idea, which is in the code, he might be able to proceed with just a sketch of whatever's being proposed to be changed and it appended to the earlier approved plan and say, this is what I'm proposing to do. I mean, there's not any building going on or structural change, it sounds like being going on. So why couldn't he just indicate it on a sketch plan with whatever detail we need him to show and append it to the earlier approved plan and say there's no other changes, and then wouldn't that be sufficient for us to understand the application without him having to get something, you know, drawn up by a surveyor or anything like that at cost, which I don't know why we would impose that.
I would really appreciate that.
Makes sense to me, Stuart.
That's in 260-74A. It's the second sentence. It says the site plan may be a sketch plan, but shall contain all the items listed in 260-76A below necessary to reasonably depict what is being proposed. So I would think we could work with them on that. But in answer to John's point, I do think that the procedure of a public hearing has to be followed, because there are maybe other cases where we also need to follow it. And I think if we're going to obey the code in one, we're going to have to follow it in the other, I think.
Has there been significant changes so that the site plan would reflect those? Have there been any changes that a new site plan would reflect?
But
There are
the
no-
only thing is a change of use. It's a change of use.
No, I
There's no
understand.
change to the exterior at all.
No, but
May I
it's the
ask if Melissa shared that sketch that I sent? Has everyone seen that, which shows the addition of the two appliances?
I'll get mine off.
They
But I
received
think-
it.
Okay. Would that qualify as a sketch showing the change? Because it does just show the change, which is just the stove and fridge added to the second floor. Otherwise, the entire exterior is the same.
If the property has already been approved as an Airbnb through the
Not that this
town,
is gonna help, but this is the sketch you guys were sent. This is the new site plan.
we got it in the email, right?
You did.
Okay, so
Well, let me propose a way of thinking about this. He's been offering it as an Airbnb. He had to go through some process or other to get that approved. It was a studio before. Arguably, in terms of the larger goals that the town has, having a stable long-term residence apartment is preferable to having an Airbnb location.
Correct.
And I would commit to keeping it that way because we're done with doing Airbnb. You know, the competition has changed. The whole environment this year is certainly different. Hopefully that'll change for the better. But last year we decided to stop that after 6-7 years. And we were highly ranked, just to point out that we did a really good job not only keeping the property up, but also to put up a good face on Woodstock by entertaining people and showing them the town. But we don't want to go back to that. I think other people are doing that better. And I would appeal to the board to approve the use so that we can have more apartments when there's a lack of them, I think, in town.
okay, my question is, on the existing approved site plan, how is that building listed? As a studio or as an Airbnb? On the existing approved
I believe it's listed as a studio, but I had to go through some approvals to allow the Airbnb usage, but I don't know that was actually written in the site.
That should have been a change of site plan when it went from a studio to an Airbnb.
Probably so.
Was the Airbnb requirement, was that something instituted in the last year or two, or is that?
Last 2 years, we've had a
Last
law
year?
requiring Airbnbs to get approval.
Short-term rental application.
Okay, because we stopped that activity. I'm not sure exactly when, but we haven't done that in over a year.
Okay,
We
the
also
additional,
pay taxes. We paid, and we stopped that as well. We turned in our tax ID as a result of completing that. And we didn't apply for the Airbnb 200 licenses, I believe, that are required now. So we didn't apply for that because we don't plan to do that anymore.
So it's still a studio,
But it was, I believe, just listed as a studio.
right?
But it's not being rented. Is that correct?
Right.
No, it was not being rented. We used it, and also in winter, as another point to bring up, it was never rented out in winter because it had a wood burning stove, and I wanted to manage that. So I didn't want it to be rented by anyone who had to manage a wood burning stove, and nor did I want them to rely on them. So in winter, no one rented it or borrowed it for Airbnb use. It was only in warm weather.
Okay, so I agree with John that, you know, it's a very minor thing going on, and we.
I have both site plans, which I kind of thought I sent both of them to you, but maybe I didn't. But if you as the planning board would like for me next week to send you the old site plan and the new site plan, to then make a decision whether or not you find it minor or not, we can do that also, Peter.
I agree. Okay, I get you, Melissa. I agree with everybody that it's minor in physical change. The question is it a change of use? And that's what we have to deal with on the site plan. We're changing a site plan from a studio to an apartment. And if the ZBA approves that, then I think we can go ahead with it. But that is a change of use, which is usually goes through the ZBA.
Oh, I suspect she wanted us to think about the legal issues. And it seems to me that it's fallen into a crack because the Airbnb use, which was legal, it wasn't regulated at the time. It never really was defined as living space, but it was approved to be used for something that's arguably living space.
Wait a minute. Is that correct with respect to the unit that's in the studio, or is that correct with respect to the apartment that's in your house? I'm confused. Was the studio building ever used for Airbnb or as a rental of some sort?
The studio was used for Airbnb during warm weather, but never through winter.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, Judy.
The site
See, that
plans
was
are
my
very
impression.
similar.
What's that, Melissa?
The site plans are very similar.
They
So
would be because it's the same buildings.
I mean, yeah.
My feeling is if the building inspector okays that change of use, then we can go ahead and approve the site plan change. I agree with John. We don't need a public hearing because there's nothing major changed as far as the site.
I agree.
It's just a question if
I
the
agree.
building inspector agrees to have a change of use.
Yeah, another point, whenever that's possible. Oh, please go ahead.
No,
I
but-
move we declare this a minor change and I don't know what wording to use for this. John might have a better idea.
Well, we can tentatively approve this with the exception, with the caveat that the building department approves this change of use. Otherwise, we can approve the site plan change. Because there is a very little site plan change. What he's talking about what's inside, which doesn't affect us at all, and maybe a parking space.
May I make perhaps a final point while you're considering this? That so I recently put an advertisement out there, and I got an unprecedented. This is more than what had occurred when I first rented the main house. Main house, I might have gotten 5 calls, less than 10. Showed it till I found someone interesting. In this case, I listed the place just to see what kind of response I would get. This was yesterday. Within an hour, 12 to 13 calls. 2 days later, 20. I've gotten 37 calls so far, and it's outrageous. And so I talked to these people, and a realtor also called, and I found that quite amazing that everyone is saying there isn't any really good apartments available in Woodstock. There's one over
Okay,
the
so
Gillett Carriage that's available.
I feel,
thank you.
let me ask the board, but I feel that if we get the CEO's approval for the change of use, that we're okay to go ahead after that and approve the site plan change.
No, I agree.
Without a
Ju-
public hearing.
No. Judy, if you could finish your motion, I think then somebody could second and we could vote.
I wasn't quite sure how to word it. I move we approve the change of use subject to the agreement of the zoning enforcement officer and without requiring a public hearing, because it is a very minor change in actual use.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm going to oppose on procedural grounds because I'm not convinced that we don't have to hold a public hearing, and I don't want to set a precedent on the
I
one
understand.
for other cases.
Appreciate that, Stuart.
So Stuart, I'm going to keep you as a nay and everybody else as a yes.
All right.
Okay, Richard.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, folks, so that was a warm-up. Now, we have before us Place 99, which is a follow-up sketch plan review for site plan modification. Application to move the trash pickup site for the Garden Cafe tenant from 3 Rock City Road to in front of the cafe at 68 Old Forge Road in the HC zoning district in Woodstock. And the owner, Mary Ann Place, is the rep, and George Fistrett. Now, before we get into this, I want to say a couple of things. First of all, we're going to have all the communications brought up to us. This was a sketch plan review, as I just said, to change the location of the garbage cans. And we know that there's a lot more going on than just the garbage cans. So I had asked for a 60-day period to look into options, not a trial period, and not to move things, but to look into options to solve this issue. We now have many letters from many people on both sides of the aisle, but the most important ones is we have letters from the church and the town of Woodstock, who both have property there in the Village Green, who are quite opposed to putting it in the Village Green. So what we need, and this is what we were getting into before, the site plan that was approved back in so many years ago
2007.
is obviously over the 90 days. And most important letter we got, of course, is from the CEO, who did an inspection at the request of the planning board and went to the alley and went to the site and determined that there have been a lot of changes to the site plan that are not on the original site plan. There's change of owners, and there's a change of the size of the operation in the sense of a new area that was not included in the original site plan. There's an issue of the alley ownership or ability to use it. So all these things amount to more than a minor change of moving a garbage can. And what we don't have in front of us is a complete up-to-date site plan, which we need in order to review the whole case, because it's over 90 days. There are sufficient changes that it will have to go back to complete review. And that review will start with a complete site plan. So Stuart had some input on that. He wrote me a letter And I don't have it in front of me, Stuart, but if you want to reiterate a couple of the points that you said in there, I
Well,
appreciate it.
Okay, as long as you're asking me to do that, I'll do that. I do want to just state one reaction is that I don't view any one particular person's letter as more important than the other. We've received so many letters expressing so many different points of view, and everybody has something to say. So I don't necessarily give greater weight to one source than another. I look more to the content of what people are saying and try and weigh it on the merits. In any event, Peter asked me if he followed up on some exchange we had at the last time this was on, and he asked me if I had found anything in the code that would allow us to deal with this application without holding a public hearing, and I answered him no and referred him to section 26085, which I read as saying that review of a proposed amendment to a previously approved site plan has to comply with all requirements of Article 7, which includes the procedural requirement of a public hearing. And the only exception is that if the amendment is proposed within 90 days of the original approval, the planning board then has to determine whether review of the amendment may go forward without procedural requirements. And that's my reading of it. There's a 90-day provision that if the amendment is proposed more than 90 days after the original approval, we have to conduct our review in full compliance with the requirements. And I think that includes a public hearing, but obviously people on the board have a different view, and that's okay. There is a provision in Article 7 that talks about giving the board discretion to waive certain procedures if an application is minor in scope and so on. So, you know, with that in mind, I floated some ideas about what we might do tonight, and one was to defer any vote on the merits of the application until a public hearing is scheduled and held. The main reason for that, in my view, is that I think a public hearing would benefit our consideration of this application because there's so many divergent views. It would give us an opportunity to let everyone have their say to the board, hopefully with not a lot of cross exchanges with people who might have different views that are in the room or on the Zoom. And then once the public hearing is done and everyone's been able to present their views, then we can close the public hearing and then discuss it amongst ourselves in the meeting without having to, you know, continue expression of views that we've already heard. So I just think it might be an easier way to handle it, putting aside for the moment our differences over whether it's actually compelled by the code.
I agree with Stuart on
I had made
this.
that suggestion to Peter just as a way of handling this. If we defer the vote, it gives everybody an opportunity to shape up their communications and get in order what they want to say. Then we'll hear it all in an organized way. But the other thing that was concerning me that I didn't write to Peter on, but which appears from what's been happening, is that I don't see these communications having been copied to the operator of the Garden Cafe. So I would want to make sure that before we actually hear people's presentations in a public hearing, that the operator of the cafe has had the benefit of seeing what people have submitted to us. I think that's only fair. So that's really a process concern of mine. So that's why I'm saying it now. So, you know, those are the thoughts that I have in answer to Peter's question.
I certainly definitely agree with you, Stuart, that the operator of the Garden Cafe ought to have the ability to read all these letters before that time. The main issue here is that the board did ask the CEO to review the site plan and go to the site and see if it's compliant. And we have a letter from the CEO saying that there have been some sufficient changes to the site plan from what the original old site plan was. And therefore, we need a new site plan in order to review it. So that's about where we stand. And this, I agree with Stuart. We should have no vote at this point until everything is been reviewed, until the site plan has been reviewed, until the owner of the Garden Cafe has gotten to see all the information, and that we should therefore initiate a site plan review.
I'm with you.
So this was a follow-up on a sketch plan review, and what we're going to do is we're going to ask for a site plan to be submitted to the planning board, and actually it gets submitted to the building inspector first, who then submits it to the planning board. Stuart, you had something?
I'm sorry?
Oh, I thought your screen came up.
No.
The audience is asking for the floor.
Yes, I see. Dave, yes?
How you doing, guys? Can y'all hear me?
Yes?
Yeah.
I would, since you have me out, I'd just like to ask a question as a neighbor, and you guys got my letters. And I gave all my letters today to Leah, printed up. So she has everything that I gave you already, and I handed it to her just so she would have that opportunity as well. Because I've seen portions of the site plan for this property. I'm the neighbor. And I'm one of the people that wants the garbage not to be on Rock City Road, and I've told you the reasons why. Is the place on the sidewalk where the garbage truck pulls up and takes the garbage away listed on the site plan? Because I see all the stuff that's on the property where it's stored and kept and managed and such, with the details of how the Garden Cafe is supposed to handle their garbage. But I don't see anywhere that it's specifically, and maybe it's because I only have portions of the site plan, but it doesn't actually say where it's picked up on the street. So I was asking.
That's why we're asking for a new site plan.
Okay, so am I wrong to think that the original site plan that was approved did not actually approve the garbage in writing, approve it to be on Rock City Road,
Yes,
to be
it did.
picked up?
Yes,
It did. It said to put it out on the county highway.
It says pick up on Rock City Road. That's what it
All
says.
right.
If you look at the plan, that's what it says.
All right, and I'll see it, and I believe you. I just didn't see that when I read it. I wanted to know if that was something that was approved, and obviously I have my concerns about how that would be safe to be approved and how it was ever considered, but I wouldn't know because I wasn't there.
Those are comments I think best reserved for a hearing if we get to that point, because I'm sure people can have a lot to say up and down about.
Okay, but that would require.
We don't need to take 15 minutes with each person tonight. That belongs in the hearing.
I agree with you.
Okay. So, but as a neighbor, what options do I have? Because I can't submit a site plan review. My property owner next door. Do I have any?
As a neighbor, you'll be invited to the public hearing, and at that time, you have your input.
If my neighbor chooses not to submit a site plan review, do I have anything to say about how it affects me?
Not at this point, no. We are going to ask for a new site plan. You will get to see that new site plan when it's presented to the public. Then
Okay, so
the reason we're insisting, sorry.
You will get to see the site plan before the public hearing. You will get to see it.
Sure, I'm just concerned she's not going to do it at all. And then where do we stand?
Really doesn't have that option because she's already changed the property, and so she is in violation. Technically, she could be
the
told
Garden
to move back
Cafe.
the way it was.
The Garden Cafe is in violation, or the owner? Okay, so
owner.
if the restaurant doesn't follow the site plan, is it the restaurant's fault or is it the property owner's fault?
Scarborough.
Don't get into that now. We're not.
Yeah, I don't think we should. I think this conversation is inappropriate.
We're not getting into that at all. The site, the ZEO has determined that there have been changes to the site plan, and therefore the planning board is requiring a new site plan.
Understood.
And new site plan review. That's
Thank you,
where we
sir.
are now.
You're requiring it, and that's what I didn't hear.
Yeah.
I thought you were allowing her the opportunity to do it, but you're
We're
requiring.
going to have a site plan review.
Got it. Thank you for your time.
Okay? Yeah.
You want to take a vote on that, Peter?
Excuse me?
Do you want to take a vote on that, or you
Yes,
declaring?
no, we definitely need to take a vote on that.
Well,
So
I
I
have, a
would,
question, I have a question before we put up to a vote.
okay, sure.
I'm still not clear on some things. Presently, there is one approved site plan that was approved in 2007. We know that. And regardless of what has happened since that time, there's still only one approved site plan on record. And we also know that the owner, Place 99 LLC, has come to the board with a request to modify that site plan in one respect, to remove the garbage storage and pickup areas, as I understand it, from what's on the site plan to a new location in front of the cafe's entrance on Old Forge Road. That's what we have before us. So it seems to me that's the application that we have to dispose of one way or another. How do we get from there to skipping over that and requiring the owner to file an application for what really would be a proposed new site plan to replace the one that's on record? How do we get there?
Because the planning board wrote to the CEO and asked the CEO to inspect the site to see if it's in compliance with the site plan. And the CEO said it is not.
Right.
So that's why we
Isn't that an enforcement question right now? I don't know how we can compel a property owner to do something. All we can do is pass upon proposed site plans or proposed modifications to site plans.
But the difference
have the
is it's not a
authority
question
to
of moving the
dictate?
trash can.
What's that?
It's not just a question of moving the trash cans. It's not a question of just the trash. It's a question now that the whole site plan has changed. The area has changed. It was originally one part of the building. Now it's another section. So the site plan that we have approved before us is not what is happening now.
Right. So why wouldn't it be up to the building department or ZEO to enforce the current site plan, or declare the owner in violation of the current site plan until such time as a new site plan is approved, legalizing what's there? You know, I'm concerned about the process, and you're probably going to be ticked at me for being a stickler for this, but I think we have to stay with our limits under the code. And in this case, I don't see how we get to, unless they consent to do it, how do we get to dictating to the property owner that they must come in with a new site plan? Because if they don't want to do it, then it's up to the town to enforce the existing site plan until it's changed. I mean, to me, that's the process. But I don't know how the rest of the board speaks. I'm only one person.
I agree with you.
I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, the thing is that since there's so much since we've expanded beyond the initial complaint now, Ellen has expressed that they're in violation. I mean, I think one of the things that should definitely come out of this is that there should be no further modifications to take you even further into that violation. And from here, in order to remedy the current violation, we're going to need to see a new site plan, and the rest is on the town and Ellen to enforce the current state of things.
Well, I mean, we haven't heard yet from the owner tonight. Maybe we ought to accord that. But I mean, it seems to me
George is Mary Ann's rep.
What's that?
George Dinsrud is here, and he's Mary Ann's rep.
I just want to make one more comment. Forgive me. These are the kinds of things that you think about at 2 a.m. when you wake up. But unfortunately, so if the owner were to withdraw its current application to modify the site plan and indicate that they want to come in with a new modification of site plan to take account of whatever changes have occurred from 2007 to present, then, you know, that might be a way of solving it procedurally. So then we can have before us a new application with a broader, more up-to-date plan, and we can, you know, handle that in our usual process. But to me, the 2007 plan has to stand until it's modified in our files, and it hasn't been modified.
Thank you, Stuart.
Okay.
I mean, the question that comes up for me is, in the original 2007 site plan, is there a stipulation for the volume of garbage? And I think it is actually limited to 3 bins. I might be incorrect, but
You are incorrect.
and the issue that we're actually dealing with at this point is an expansion in the volume of garbage that's actually set out on the street, you know. I would love to work out some kind of a solution, right, that has the least impact on the greatest number of people, right? As it is now, what we're looking at is people walking down Rock City Road, coming from the parking lot, you know, the public parking area, are confronted with this, and it's right in front of the bus stop. And if we could somehow solve this without having to go into the minutia of, you know, procedure, it would be great, right?
I mean, one way to solve it is have a private person truck the stuff away every day or every other day, take it to the dump. Probably
That would
costs
be good too.
Probably costs
That-
less than having the cartage people come. You know?
That's-
This
Take
is
them,
Brian.
truck them to the dump and that's done.
Yeah.
This is Brian, if I may, George, and thank you for that feedback. I appreciate it. Leah, I have a question for you. How many trash cans do you have?
We have 7 trash, 3 recycling.
Okay. Is there a way, and you get garbage picked up once a week, right?
Yes.
During the busy season, is there a way that is it possible to get it picked up twice a week?
It's something I've looked into. It's hard because a lot of companies don't do a 2-time pickup, commercial pickup in town, and I'm closed Tuesday and Wednesdays. It's picked up on Monday, so there's not enough garbage to pay double the price on that because it would be a burden definitely during COVID. You know, it's less, we have like less garbage. We actually added cans to make sure that the cans weren't up or over full. That's why there's more cans. The pickup is before the traffic of the street. You know, they try very hard to get there by 9. You know, some companies do it at 5, but nobody's there at 5 to take it off the street anyway. We put the garbage out in the evening when the street traffic is died down. Also, to have somebody pick up daily for our garbage, I don't know how that would ever be done. It's a commercial business. Where do you put that? There's not even a dump that would accept that on a daily basis.
And I appreciate it. And let me ask, so do you think your volume doubles during the tourist season or summer, or is it?
Definitely more. That's why we added the cans even during COVID, because I just don't want the cans up. You know, sometimes, you know, if it's over full, that's why we did it more, just to be actually more considerate. Sometimes the cans aren't even fully full, but we want to make sure that there's no overflow. Often people dump their own garbage in there because there is actually room. Obviously, we have basically 2 months where it's a lot of garbage. It's just, you know, it's summertime, but we do try to maintain it as best as we can. We are a commercial business. We, thank God, we are successful and well supported. We're always open for improvements. I've looked at different companies. I've looked at different times for pickup, and I was like, oh yeah, 5 o'clock is great. But is it? I don't even have my employees come in till like 9 or 10. Like, nobody's actually bringing it off the street. Marianne gets her, Mrs. Place gets her garbage picked up at 5.
Well,
But
didn't Larry Lawrence?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but on this issue of timing and all, Larry Lawrence sent us a letter with knowledge that there's another Carter that does pickups in the vicinity before businesses open. Maybe he could help us with those facts. And I don't know if you've looked into that or not. There's another Carter that he mentioned.
So that he has, I have, because of the alley so narrow, we have individual bins that are brought out. He has a dumpster. So those are the early ones. I hear them in town 3, 4, 5 in the morning that does
Waste
that.
Management. Waste Management is the name that he mentioned, I believe.
But he has a carting company. Like, it's more of a big truck comes in, scoops up this massive, bin. Dumpster. And does, yeah. So we have a different type of garbage setup because of the narrowness of the alley. Like literally garbage. Yeah, they're just like larger household garbage cans. I could submit some more pictures of that for you.
Well, we've been furnished a number of
Many-
videos, photos, kind of graphic. So anyway, Peter, I didn't mean to jump on your leadership here, but I jumped in.
Well, the thing is that we've just got a lot of letters, a lot of people back and forth on this. And that what's before us, as Doherty pointed out, is a amendment to an existing site plan. That's what's before us. And, you know, we let this 60-day period from the first site plan review to see if there could be any solutions. And doesn't seem that has been resolved as to another way to get the garbage out or another way to put it. And so that leaves us with having to do a review.
Peter, Mr. Lawrence has his hand up.
Okay, yes, Larry?
Yes, as far as the timing, well, first I should say that there is every kind of truck that comes back in down Old Forge Road on Wednesdays and Thursdays. There's big containers as well as Leah-sized containers, all picked up before 7 a.m. down the road here. So I think the real problem is the timing, and I think that's something that I wouldn't think would be too difficult to work out something with Mary Ann, the owner, to have a building maintenance person come in early to do other maintenance as well as put the cans away and possibly even put them out so that it doesn't become a problem for Leah when she's open or when she's not, so that almost nobody would see the cans because they'd be put out late and they'd be picked up. Well, I mean, this morning I heard the trucks down Old Forge Road at 5 a.m. for the 90-gallon containers that 14 Old Forge Road use. So it's not like the trucks are not available. The problem, as Leah said, is she doesn't have her people in necessarily on days when those trucks are here.
Okay, thanks, Larry. I
George
see
has got a
George
comment.
has your hand up. Okay, what?
Well, I just wanted to make a bit of a correction here, if I could just share my screen. And this is just from August 28th. Just bear with me for a second.
I'm trying not to roll my eyes.
Okay, so what I've counted here is 10 bins, right, plus the cardboard, right? This is from July 28th of 2020, right? And the volume is just astronomical. And I believe that the original site plan review of 2007 stipulated a maximum of 3 bins, 3 containers, right? And because of the expansion of the restaurant, the volume of garbage is gotten, you know, exponential here. So what we're actually attempting to do is work out some kind of a solution, right? And, you know, that works, you know, for the adjacent property owners, the community, and Win Morrison, the real estate people who have to kind of deal with this, you know, every time the garbage goes out, right? So that's what we're actually looking at here for a solution to make this workable.
July 28th. Okay, so hi, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, so if we could keep these pictures up, if you would return to those pictures, if you look at the dates, the newer cans.
There's 10.
Yes, yeah, I did say 10.
And they're dated 2019.
I said tables. I said I had 7 garbage cans and 3 recycling, which would equal 10. And with those pictures, you have very related, like different dates. You have 2019. We have new cans. We updated the cans. I would be happy to submit pictures to you. I could try to show you on the camera, but those are not accurate pictures. We've improved, as we've discussed over and over again.
Are you saying that August 24th, that this line
I
of
actually don't
garbage
see the pictures.
But we did see labels with that said 2019 on the pictures you just put up on the screen.
I'm just going by what's up there.
This says August 24th, 2020.
Unfortunately, I can't see any pictures.
George, we can't see the photos. You got to show them to us. Right now, we're just looking at
Your screen,
your screen.
Sorry.
stop.
your email.
Excuse me,
Thanks, George.
my bad. Hold on.
Okay. Technology.
Let's try it again.
Practice.
Okay.
I always set them up ahead of time.
2019.
So we look at bottom right, those are our new bins. That says August 24th.
Right.
That's how it's laid out. Then the top left, we have October 1st, 2019, October 15th, 2019. I don't know what this picture is here, July 28th, 2020. Those are, looks like it was dumped and there was garbage left on the bottom. We cleaned them out. Yes. The top right, we have July 28th, 2020. Those are cans that were
The
replaced.
concern
by
actually was,
Lisa needs to be able to speak.
I'm just explaining the pictures. So that's the October 15th, I believe that was Columbus Day. I mean, that's a year ago. I would like to maybe focus on the August 24th, 2020. Those are new cans. They seem a little larger, the cleaner. The ones above that, that was right before we got the new bins because of the new company.
So when you're done explaining, I'd love you to explain how you actually justify putting the garbage, your garbage, in front of somebody else's business.
I would very, very be pleased to do that. I bought a restaurant from Pam Brown, the Garden Cafe. I have a landlord, who said, I bought a business and a landlord who said, this is where you will place your garbage. And this is where you'll store it. And this is where you get deliveries. And this is where you'll break down things. This is where all the workings will be. And then when your garbage is picked up, you will bring it to Rock City Road. I had nothing to do with this, George. I had nothing to do. It's a 2007 plan. Nothing to do with it. I bought a restaurant and I had a landlord who said, this is what you do. And that's all I did. You're saying
that's
I
encouraging, because I think what it is that we're actually asking is to create a solution.
No, I wasn't asked. I was told.
You're not.
I didn't even know about the original thing. I had no idea what was going on. Oops, sorry. Sorry.
They don't use
So.
that door.
Okay, let's bring this back to the board, please.
So sorry.
You've seen the pictures. What's in front of us is a site plan review. And it's in front of us from the owner of the building. Has requested this site plan review to make a change to the site plan. That's what we have in front of us. So the issues that everybody's bringing up, yes, we can see that those are the issues, but the facts of the matter is this is a request for a site plan review. And that's what we have in front of us.
Peter, I have a couple questions. It's Brian, if I may. Who is responsible for submitting that site plan? The business owner of Garden Cafe or the building owner? Or?
No, whoever the site plan is assigned to.
Okay.
The owner of the building, Peter.
Which is the owner of the building in this case, yes.
Okay.
That's who the site plan's name is in.
And John, since you're, do you have any thoughts on Ellen's latest communication?
Yes. I'm not sharing with you right now, Pete. I do have thoughts, yes. Okay. I'd like to comment on Mr. Finsrud's thing regarding 3 garbage cans and an original restaurant. When your landlord doubled the space by renting the additional space to the Garden Cafe, didn't they make arrangements at that point in time for what would be additional refuse?
That I don't know.
Well, then I think we should stop referring to the 3 garbage cans in the 2007, because that's moot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe it's moot also. I mean, what we're trying to solve here is,
We need a solution.
I'm sorry.
We need a solution to this, George, that will work for all of us.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely 100% agree.
I have a
I am
question
very-
for,
yeah.
I have a question for Leah Haas. You said your restaurant is closed Tuesday, right?
Tuesday and Wednesday.
Tuesday and Wednesday. Is that written in stone, or might you consider adjusting your opening and closing dates to accommodate a solution to the removal of the higher volume of garbage?
So my higher volume of garbage does exist July, August, and into September through Labor Day. Right now, our business right after Labor Day has basically cut in half. During COVID, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm hoping that I could open a Wednesday again. Financially, it doesn't make sense for me to do that. So I don't know what my future holds. I'm just holding on tight to what I have. But my hopes are that we will one day open. And again, I'm always willing to look for a solution, but I'm not doing anything more than I've done for the past 5 years. If anything, I feel like I've improved on what has been done from the beginning to now, and I'm always trying to improve it.
Right, but on one side of this dispute, you have the landlord and others weighing in that there's too many cans in front of someone else's business. And even if the lids are closed, it's still a large parade of garbage cans that they're looking to have moved in front of your business. You, on the other hand, don't want to have them in front of your business. And the town, hold on, let me finish my thought. In the town, it seems town fathers are not at this point in favor of stationing garbage cans on that edge of the village green, which is kind of a landmark in our area, and they want to preserve that. But really, I think nobody's going to be satisfied here unless we come up with a solution. So what I am trying to get my head around is what could if you change to a different carter that can pick up the higher volume before people start to come onto the green or businesses open up, to me, that would be one way of trying to get it done so that the garbage problem goes away from the public having to look at it and from Win Morrison having to traipse around it to get into their door and out of their door and so on. It would remove the problem, but there has to be give on and take on all sides. And so I'm not looking to put it all on you, but I really would like to get to the sense of whether you fully explored a change in carters to one that has a better schedule to get to a solution.
I do have emails to prove that I have reached out to answer some of your points. Win Morrison does not use that door. It says, please use the front door. That is a side door that has never been used. I put the garbage out after they're closed, and I bring it back in before they open. To have a different car come in earlier, again, with Larry's suggestion, maybe you should have somebody who's a maintenance person who could take the garbage in and out. That's another solution. But for me to hire somebody to come in on a day off or come in earlier to move in garbage would be, again, so definitely I've looked at many different ways, but we definitely do try to make sure that the business is closed before we bring it out and in before businesses open.
So what has been the experience of your present carter? What has been the experience with your present carter in terms of getting the cans emptied before?
I would say by 9:30, it's picked up. That seems, he says 9 o'clock. I've been keeping an eye on it because especially I'm super sensitive with this. And he said that as he gets more contracts, it will get earlier and earlier and earlier. Because
how do you get the cans in, and what about the time of getting the cans back into the alley? How does that work?
So usually we try to get it in right after. So between whatever time they pick it up, I either try to run by or somebody's in the kitchen. So hopefully by once it's emptied, 9:15, 9:30, before businesses really do open. Yum Yum is not open yet. Win Morrison, unfortunately, hasn't been open because of COVID, but they don't open till 11, 12 o'clock. on a regular.
What's Mr. Finsworth's reaction to that?
Well, that isn't necessarily the case. I'd really like to hear from Dave and the impact that the garbage stacked up has had on his business, number one. And unfortunately, there isn't a representative from Win Morrison here, but I believe the board has actually gotten a video testimonial from Win Morrison as to how the garbage stacked out in front of their businesses impacted them.
Right. We have Dave's letters, and there are several letters from David. I don't know that he needs to repeat what he put in the letters because that would just take more time. We already have what he said, and we also have the video. Whose voice was on the video? I wasn't clear about that.
I'm not quite sure. I don't think it's Win Morrison. I believe it is one of the employees, one of the members.
Of whom?
Of Win Morrison.
Yeah, there's a female.
Right.
Okay.
Judy has her hand up there. Judy?
What I'm wondering is if there is cartage available that comes around 5 in the morning, and if Leah had somebody come in 1 hour early so that she could have that person move the cans, then it would miss a significantly larger part of the business day. And if it was picked up at 5 and somebody didn't come till 8 to take the cans back, that's the middle of the night. Well, not really, but it's very early.
Yeah.
John?
It smells all night. It smells all night. This is Dave. It's not about that. We're here all night and it smells.
Okay, hold on. John has his hand up.
Yeah, I would like to ask the owners of the cafe, how much of your waste do you compost?
Well, the past month and a half, the people who pick up the compost every other day has stopped, and we actually reached out to a composting company to see if they could pick up the compost. Our compost is put in a double black bag. We don't have that much of it, especially during COVID because we're doing a quarter of our business, but we do we're looking to replace the people who pick up the compost. Mostly it's recycling. It's not a lot of food waste, but there's a lot of packaging. It seems like everything's in packaging, cardboard and, cans and wax boxes.
Okay, when it comes to that part of your waste stream, what about compaction?
What's compact? Like just pressing it down?
No, I mean a commercial compactor. It's a device that would compact that waste to probably 1/4 of the volume that it currently occupies and reduce the number.
That's something that I could. That's
they're available.
That's pretty awesome.
I had one at my home at one time, and it reduced the amount of waste going out of our home enormously. And
I would love that.
well, they make them. They're commercial. They're available, and they're perfect for non-food related kinds of waste.
And can you just repeat the name of it again?
No,
It's called a trash compactor.
Okay. Oh, okay.
You can find ones that are the size of small garbage cans. That's not or large ones.
Because she's got a lot of waste there, Connor.
Yeah. Well, the only other thing I was going to suggest, and I've seen this in other places, but again, the logistics of something like this may very well not make sense at all. Who manages the small parking lot at the bottom of Old Forge Road? Who's
the small parking lot? You mean the lot across the stream?
Yes. Like if you've got Garden Cafe on your right, you're walking downhill, and there's a small dirt parking lot.
On which side of the stream are you talking about? On the other side of the stream?
Yes.
That would be Larry's or the church's.
Because I wonder, I've seen places where they have a service where someone comes and drops off a dumpster like once a week that you can like essentially empty all your stuff into over the course of a night, maybe 2, and then they come pick it up early the next day. depending on what made sense. I'm just wondering if that is an option, to have something either shared by the entire building located nearby, to sort of keep it out of the way, but still hold a large amount of garbage without requiring you guys to store 10 total cans.
Mhm.
But I
The
mean, that
number
would
of
require,
the number of cans, I have a question, Mr. Finsruth.
Yes.
You have how many tenants in this building?
Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I believe 6.
So, okay, let's say that the largest percentage of waste is from the Garden Cafe.
That's correct.
Well, they still don't have the 10 cans, do they? How much do they really have? 50%? 60%? Do you know the answer?
I'm not following your question. I'm sorry.
What percentage of the waste stream coming out of that building is
Yes.
attributable to the Garden Cafe?
I would say 90+%.
You have 6 tenants and they're doing 90%?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's the reason why I can say that is that the building uses a separate carting service, other than the one that the Garden Cafe uses.
and
So
is that one capable of picking up individual cans from the side of the road, or is it, how does that one work? Where do you
Yeah.
guys where do they drop their garbage? In a bin on the side of the road once a week or so?
I believe so, yes.
Hours, yeah.
So, I mean, and I don't want to be pejorative, or it just seems, Leah, I assume you've looked into that as an option, piggybacking off of their
Mhm.
service.
Yes, it's the same day. You know, I don't know theirs. I looked into waste management because they do like a lot more commercial things. I'm again,
Sure.
looking, I like this company, but I'm willing to look at, it's more cost effective for the amount of garbage. I look
Sure.
at those.
Well, but you are then open to having someone who manages, like a super, or someone who manages the building,
Of course.
access to put your cans out, put them away,
Yes.
to
'Cause- yeah.
ultimately satisfy the needs of this party's other tenants that you share space with. So I mean, just from my perspective right now, Peter said it, we have a certain purview that we can look at this through, and everyone from the town down has expressed, valid, I think, good faith concerns, and I think there are conversations you guys can have between now and when we do have that public hearing that might bring you to a closer understanding, if not a firm one. And I think, this conversation does really seem to be orbiting someone being available on a less convenient day to handle this as it exists. Because if there isn't going to be a communal for the whole building dumpster, we have to find a way to make this work.
Yes. Exactly. One of the suggestions that Ellen, the building inspector, actually had was to carve out an enclosure over at the corner of the garden, right? Something similar to what other restaurants actually use, an enclosed area where there would be a metal dumpster and it would actually,
How do
be
know if that's
accessible to, excuse me?
Dumpster in the garden.
I don't even think the health department would approve that. I do have I think my greatest concern about moving it is that, yes, the location in front of the gates isn't ideal, but during the weather, the snow, the town actually uses that as embankments. They plow right into that area. So for in the middle of the night having my garbage plowed in because it is on the road, I think that's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah,
for
I mean,
for us,
for-
but also for the
What-
town. I mean, I just to ask my staff to bring it all the way around the corner, shovel out this big snow mound, put it there. Then in the morning, getting plowed in, and now my company's not going to pick it up because it's been plowed in, because that is a location for the town to kind of use as that's probably my biggest, like, oh God, what am I going to do about that? Because they won't pick up garbage. They're plowed in.
Peter,
John?
we really need to get to a public hearing on this instead of the
Yeah.
public hearing.
I'm
now,
sorry.
I
Because
agree.
we have a lot of different opinions here. We have a town of Woodstock, a Dutch Reformed church that own the green. No one, including myself, as a former town supervisor, wants to see trash stored on the green. There has to be another solution that works for both the owner of the building and the owner of the business.
Exactly. Here's the situation. We have this application before us to make a site plan change. The applicant wanted to change the location. It seems quite obvious that we can't find another location. So it seems we have to find a solution to getting the stuff taken away quickly, easily, and not be a problem.
Or reduce the volume of it, Peter. Reduce the volume.
Reduce
That's
the
why I
volume,
suggest
get it away
compact.
quicker, whether it's a private company, a carting company that can come earlier, but there is no solution to moving it somewhere else. So the solution is to getting rid of it quickly and efficiently from where it
Marianne
is.
gets the garbage picked up at 5:00 a.m., but it's not taken in until 8:30, 9 o'clock when her person brings her carts in. So it's kind of the same. It's an empty bin there. So we're kind of on the same schedule from the building to us. I mean, I live across the street. If somebody comes in earlier, I'll walk, I'll set my alarm and get it off, off Rock City Road, of course, because I don't want it there. I'm not here to stir any pots I want it to be beautiful. My restaurant's beautiful. I love the community. I don't want to add any stress, but I do have a business, and this is the layout it was. I didn't ask for anything more. I'm just asking that I could just run a business without being harassed every single day.
Judy has her hand up. Was it one of
Yeah, I just did a little quick dunk into Amazon. And
Okay.
there are trash compactors in the range from $150 to $1,500.
Okay.
So I think a little bit of research would probably turn up something in between those two that would make a significant difference in your volume.
I love that. And I will.
Also, the county has their own compost system too, by the way. You can.
They do? Okay.
Yes, they do.
The
Yeah,
county
so-
does, yes.
Yes,
Or
the
the
county
town,
has
right?
a compost place. So here's the situation. We had this sketch plan, or we had this site plan review in front of us, and we gave it 60 days, and there hasn't been a solution. So we're going to have to go ahead with a site plan review and a public hearing because there has been no solution. So that's where we stand.
Right.
Stuart, I see you getting nervous about that.
Sorry, I'm unmuted now. Unless the owner wishes to withdraw the application without prejudice.
I don't think so. I think what we need to do is move forward with this, although I'll consult with the owner. I do believe that there are solutions, right? It got this way because the restaurant
There's no other place.
expanded.
There's no other place. The town does not want it in the village green.
Very
And we
clear.
approved, the planning board approved it to be where it is now.
Very clear, very clear. But what we're dealing with here is an expansion of the restaurant that went way beyond the capabilities of the building.
Right, then you
In
have to
5
make
years.
changes, like
This has
like
been
John
5
said, get a compactor, do things differently. If you're expanding, get a compactor, you have to make changes.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
what it
totally
is.
amenable, whatever is workable. I mean, if it comes down
And,
to, installing a compactor, I mean, we're totally amenable to that as long as we can create a situation that's workable for the other tenants and the community. And I agree with you 100%, Peter, that, dealing with, the garbage on the green isn't the best solution, right? I mean, if it
It's
was,
not a
It's not a
solution.
solution.
Yeah, I mean, you got it. I'm not saying one way or the other but you had there that it's hard for me to envision that being where we come out to, you know, and the compactor is a nice solution to keep things a little more scaled down. But then I mean, the core of this is essentially either changing schedules or having the building manager accommodate someone being there at an earlier time. And between now and when we have a public hearing, you guys should, you know, really try to come together and talk about what that might look like. It sounds like, to me, the core of this is getting someone in there on the off days when the unfortunate reality is that trash pickups come, to have this stuff carted away. We can't arbitrate that now. You know, if you guys come back in 2 weeks once we have the public hearing and still haven't gotten anywhere, you know, then we're all going to have the time to air these grievances. But it sounds like there's a lot still left unsaid.
There is.
The parties.
And there's still, as I mentioned in the beginning, a private contractor can come and take care of it and get rid of it and done with it. And,
yeah.
You know,
I have
It's,
Peter,
it
Mr.
doesn't make
Finsberg, are you saying that the owner of the building will not withdraw the current paperwork?
the
And
owner
would-
will not. I'm sorry, John.
Will the owner of the building modify the request so that we can go forward with a process?
Well, we're not really fully, completely clear as to what particular avenue we can move forward.
If you want an answer on what you have presented to this planning board, is that what you want? Regarding the moving of the trash to the side location?
Well,
Is that what you want
that
an
seems to me that would actually solve the problem as far as the adjacent neighbor, Dave, right? And also Win Morrison, right? So we're looking for solutions. It's not like, you know,
Look,
I necessarily.
I
have the
worked for Win Morrison for 20 years.
Yes.
As far as I know, and I worked in that office. I no longer work for him. There was never an issue. So please stop that. Now, Mr. Scarborough has an issue, a valid issue, and I understand that. But the church has an issue. The town of Woodstock has an issue. The town planning board has an issue. Now, would you like to go forward with this request? If you would, then I think this board needs to act on it.
Well, I mean, if there's that much resistance, obviously not, you know, and I think possibly, John, when you were working for Win Morrison, right, the volume of garbage was, you know, a lot less.
All I want is
I'm not ifing you, I'm just suggesting.
Are you willing to withdraw your application?
Yes, I mean, if there's so much resistance to that particular solution, well, you know, of course, I mean, why belabor the obvious?
Yeah, and I mean, not to be rude about it, but it's, you know, for those reasons and the sort of better visual integrity of the neighborhood, you're not going to find a lot of support for that. And that's why I'm saying, talk with Leah, talk with Mary Ann, find this, like, there's, unfortunately, unless you can get someone to agree to stash an entire dumpster somewhere, we're going to have to find a way to make this work. And the only way that seems to manifest itself is in some shared responsibility, a new shared responsibility.
And compassion.
I think everybody
Taking
needs
the
to put
volume
their
down.
creative hats on here. We have to come up with a creative solution that makes this work for Place 99, makes it work for the restaurant, makes it work for the Scarboroughs, makes it work for the church, the Village Green, the town of Woodstock. There's a lot of players here.
Yes, John, can you think of a creative solution to this?
That's what I'm asking you to go through a process with us to get into a discussion of possible solutions, to investigate them. I threw out the fact of composting and compaction. That will reduce the volume level that they're dealing with. I admit that I'm concerned about the volume level that is on the side of this building. I don't like the looks of that either. I don't like what it does to the entire thing. But if it is basically not food waste, this should not be it's not rocket science right now. It really isn't. But we have to find a solution. And whether or not there's any animosity between the tenant and the owner of the building, I don't know. And guess what? I don't even care. What I do care about is your potential solution, which in my book is totally unacceptable.
All right. Well, John, can you suggest anything else that would be
Please
acceptable?
don't ask me that again. We asked you to go through a process. And the
I'll-
process is going to be putting in an application and getting to the point where you and the owner of the building come before the planning board and clean up the site plan review that you have.
I agree. So I think we're at a point where we're going to have another sketch plan review. We're going to let you all work this out, figure this out one more time. And otherwise you're going to have the board have to figure it out.
Right.
So I think we're going to give you guys another chance for a third sketch plan review to come up with a solution on your own. Okay?
And the sooner, the better.
Amen.
So we're going to adjourn this case for another, roughly 60 days, whatever Melissa can schedule things in. And we hope you folks have a solution. Otherwise, we're going to have to go to the whole route again.
Right. We're waiting for them to bring us back some paperwork.
And the other option is to withdraw, as John said, to withdraw this site plan review request.
But in any case, Peter, isn't it true that the owner of the building made changes that would need to be either reversed or there would need to be a revision of the site plan, at least to that extent?
If it came before a complete site plan review, it certainly would. Because as John pointed out, that the owner of the building leased the cafe more space, which is not reflective in the site plan. So, as John said, the owner of the building increased the business, and now they want to know how to deal with it. Well, they should have thought of it, but now they have to think of it because it's a problem for everybody, and it needs to be solved.
Right.
There we
Well,
are.
I mean, if reducing the volume of garbage isn't solved with compaction, then, the only alternative that I can see at this point would be to reduce the square footage of the actual business.
Really?
Oh,
Oh, please, George, give me a
You'll
break.
you'll get 60 days.
Yeah.
You could walk the garbage out to the dumpster, to the garbage truck, without putting it on the street. Take it straight from where it's stored right to the garbage truck. Put it in the garbage truck, put them right back where they are. It's 30 feet.
All right, well, that's for you all to decide. Okay,
George,
We need a
if
solution.
we do need to adjourn this for now, but George, if you really want to get like a creative like punch up here just for free, person to person, talk to Mary Ann about having someone come in once a week to manage that waste. I mean, if there's nothing outlined in an existing agreement between you guys for the betterment of her property, if that's the point you're coming across, Leah, I'm sure sounds more than willing to look into the compaction, which will go only so far. But if you can start to explore ways of managing how and when it leaves, I don't think it's going to be that cumbersome or expensive a solution on your horizon. I think that's where you need to start and see where you end up.
Well, Connor, I don't believe it's the owner's responsibility to actually take on the garbage problem for the restaurant. I mean, that's the restaurant's issue.
But it's your application that's brought all this to the fore, and you're asking the planning board to do something. And so I think what we're collectively suggesting is that the onus is on both the building owner and the tenant to come up with a solution that works for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, because the thing is, as far as I
And there are
understand
equities
it,
on both sides.
they're operating within the confines, as stipulated from a very old plan. And yet the changes that have been made by the owner and by the restaurant now bring you out of compliance with that plan. So there's not, so there is a solution, but I'm just saying, with just friendly, forward honesty, I don't think it involves putting those cans on Old Forge Road.
All right. Okay. So we'll have, come up with a different solution. you know?
Okay, so.
I'm not
we're
clear
gonna-
as to what it is, but I want to make it absolutely clear that it isn't the responsibility of the owner to take on the restaurant's garbage problem.
But I also would like to say that I've been there for 5 years. This has been the same situation. We've had pretty much the same amount of garbage. We do try to comply. We do try to, we have been trying. I feel like we've been improving year after year after year. We did not choose the location. And when I bought the restaurant, we had access to the full alley to do the behind the scene business. And that's, I feel like I haven't changed anything or have done anything wrong. And the size of our, business, we rent 3 spaces. We have the garden and the 2 front spaces, and that comes with a certain amount of space in the alley that needs to be used. I'm definitely going to get that compactor, and the composting is going to continue, and we're going to do our part. But again, Marianne's garbage is picked up at 5 and brought in at 8:30 or 9 o'clock. Same time pretty much as us.
Okay, folks, so we're gonna adjourn this case until Melissa reschedules it. And till
I
then,
get the proper paperwork.
Thank you.
okay, everybody.
Thank you.
Hope you all come with a solution.
Me too.
See you next time.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
board. Melissa, I don't have my schedule in front of me, but did you have so many unfinished business we had to deal with?
We did not. We had no unfinished business.
Okay. Unless anybody has anything critical to say, I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
See you
Good
around the
night.
quad.
See you later.
Thank you
Good
guys.
night.
Good night.
Night.
Hey, Peter, can you come sign some stuff for me?
Sure, sure, sure.
All right, let me know. I'm in the
Okay.
office most of the time lately.